Start with Joe.
Um, man, I Whitaker, I think he's still on the top, but he needs another big fight. I would love to see him fight for the title. I would love to see him against Pereira. I mean, like that would be a big one for me, especially because I was so bitter about him losing. When we're talking about being bitter about, that's why I hated Adesanya. I think it was the first time he fought Bobby Knuckles. So I definitely want to see him back on track. I think his last few showings have been pretty darn good. Like he has looked great. Doesn't look like he's lost a step. Like he's such a well-rounded fighter in that division. I think that's what made him so fierce to begin with. And Adesanya just shows how good of a fighter he was to figure him out, but hardly anybody has. And so I just think Whitaker's going to have one more run at it, probably. I just can't wait to see him. I don't care who they put him up against. I'll watch any fight he's in, but I think he needs to be fighting for the title very, very soon.
That makes sense. Milford, next step for Whitaker.
Who knows? Because if Izzy wins tomorrow, I don't know if they're gonna make that fight. Which he should though, because he's on top, like Joe said. Like, you know, they might need to throw him a bone to keep him occupied and active. But like the way he plans his strategy for each fight, man, he's top of the line when it comes to the mental game. Except for that first fight against Izzy, you know, where he kind of went out of character and just tried to stand and swing, you know, wild and crazy and got caught.
Yeah, I hope if he gets the fight against Pereira, I hope he does not do that.
Yeah.
I hope he uses his head.
You can't teach height and you can't teach reach. And when you got somebody who knows how to use that reach, it is hard, you know, coming from a person with T-Rex arms like me, you know, and short, man, going against guys with reach.
Feel like they're 10 feet away and they can touch me and I can't touch them.
Yeah, but like I want Izzy to win just because he's rocking the Lavalava, you know. And he's always there for the polys, but at the same time, I want Alex to win just so they got to make the fight if Alex wins Whitaker versus him.
Well, we're gonna get to that because we are gonna either jinx or help Robert Whitaker's career aspirations later in the show. Spence, how about you? What do you think is the next step for Robert Whitaker?
I think the next step is he needs to officially go back to using Bobby Knuckles as his nickname, because that's a way better nickname than Reaper, in my opinion. But I honestly, like, man, he's in a tough spot because it's you know, he's kind of like the Max Holloway of the division. Anybody that's not Izzy, he's a clear cut above. I know that the Paulo Costa fight fell apart, but last I saw, Paulo Costa is getting good with the UFC again. I thought I saw a story like that. So that would be a fun fight. I'd be happy to watch it, but it's also, look, Costa's also a dangerous fighter too. And I don't like gambling his, you know, like that you lose that one fight and now you're 2 or 3 fights away from a title shot again. Whereas where he is right now, if he sits still, he should be next in line for a fight. Thing is, even with that second Izzy fight, a lot of people scored that fight for Robert Whitaker. The problem is that it wasn't the most entertaining. It wasn't like this big slobber knocker. And so that alone makes the booking harder. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a hard sell if he's going to fight Izzy. If Izzy's the champ, it's going to be a hard sell for him. So if Izzy does win this weekend, then, you know, maybe try it for the Costa booking again.
So I think Robert I think he is in line because they've told him he was trying to, Hamzat was calling him out, and Whitaker said yes. And then they told him in an interview, he was told to hang tight. So I think what that means is they're waiting to see if this happens and Pereira wins. I think that's why they're telling him, you know, we're not signing you for a fight yet. Tough call if Izzy wins. How do they match them up again? But it was a controversial fight. You know what I mean? The decision was very close. It wasn't like the first fight. It wasn't a blowout. So I think that, I would like to see him get Hamzat if he doesn't get a title shot, because I think he matches up well with Hamzat. He's fought, Romero. He's fought wrestlers. He's fought grapplers. I think that his takedown defense is going to put him in a good place with Hamzat. Hamzat has a big name, and I think he pieces him up on the feet. So, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think Costa's I'd rather see him fight Hamzat than Costa. Costa's but then I didn't really want to see him fight Romero. I mean, I did, but I didn't, and then he won. So, yeah, hopefully he gets a title shot coming out of that. All right, we talked about Max. I think we kind of talked about this one, before we got in here. This is really a test of, it's telling. He's not a pay-per-view. He's on a free card. He's against a guy without a name, and this is new ground for him. And I think it needs to be a definitive win. It needs to be a Max Holloway is back kind of win. That's how I see this fight coming up. How about you, Spence?
Same. Yeah, he's got to do it. I mean, if the problem is that being a step behind Volk is, even if he wants to move on and go to lightweight, Volk kind of can block him up there too, because we just saw him fight for that title. But I mean, look, Holloway is a very tall, lanky guy, and let's say things don't go his way, he does have a whole other division he could explore, and I'd like to see him at lightweight actually, filled in a bit more. Maybe he performs better when he's not cutting to 45. I know he had that one fight with Poirier. I don't even think that was a very bad showing for him, and we know how good Poirier is at lightweight. But I think it's cool that we're seeing this, because you're showing this picture of him fighting Calvin Kattar, and that's kind of what this Arnold Allen fight feels like to me, because that was also a TV card. That was just hey, here's a gift we're giving everybody for free, or whoever's got ESPN. And that Calvin Kattar fight is like one of his best fights ever. And so, hopefully that's a sign of things to come, and stars are aligning, and he does another very impressive performance in this fight.
Makes sense. Milford, the kid from YNI, what's he need this fight?
Just a win, baby. I just want to put it out there that I believed in Max long before he became champion. Like, you can check my feed, even when his fellow people from Nanakuli and YNI were like, nah, he's not really it. He was, so I called it. But I like to see more strategy implemented, because it seemed like his last couple of fights, like, just go out there, scrap, have fun, which is good. It doesn't have to be complete X's and O's, but just a lot more technical, not so lackadaisical, just being in the stance and doing his thing. Just go out there, man. I don't know, just win.
So I think one of the things that I learned coming off our last show, because I jinxed Fizev, I said Justin Gaethje's Justin Gaethje. He's not going to change who he is. He's been in the game for a long time. As soon as he gets hit, he is going to go back to what we've known. And he showed that, fighters can be smart later in their career, and they don't always have to fight the way that they fight. Michael Chandler seems to not be of that school of thought. He is completely stand and bang the whole way. But I think that if, to your point, if Max can have a change and use all the tools in the toolbox and not be, what I thought Justin Gaethje would be, and, just one way, one gear, one direction, I think he can, put the pieces together and make another run. So great point. And a learning point from the last show. Joe?
Man, I'm really excited for Max. I mean, I think you made a good point too, Carl. And like, it's just kind of telling. I think part of it is just, okay, he's on a, fight night card. But I also think that's kind of just the era we're in. There's stars on every card. And so not every card is going to be a pay-per-view. Thank goodness. A lot of illegal streaming going on. But yeah, no, it's a good fight for him, but extremely dangerous. I mean, and it's sad too because Brendan Allen is so good. He's been around since like what 2015, 2016, since he's been in the UFC. He's been in there for a long time. That guy wants his due. And now he's finally, his last fight was supposed to be like his big marquee bout with Cater. And that just was just an unfortunate way that ended. I think it was round 1 or 2 when he injured his leg. I think it was round 2. I mean, like, that's why I say this is dangerous, because now Brendan Allen's got the platform yet again to be like, all right, man, I've been here. I've put in time. I need this. The UFC just gave me a great fighter. Now people are going to know my name. Now nobody's going to stop me from, I mean, he's ranked number 5. So it's not like he's a nobody. It's just, it's a scary fight for Max, because now he's got all these other things building on him. Is he done? Is he there? I'm like, I don't think Max is done. I think Max gets it done, though. I mean, at the end of the day, I still don't think he's lost much of a step. I mean, that fight with Volkanovski was bad for him, but I mean, maybe there was just something off. It's just like a bad night at the office, in my opinion. I think he's still just as good, if not better. But we'll see.
I think there's a piece of it. Maybe that was the beginning of, because Volkanovski really impressed me against Makhachev. Like, to me, that wasn't the same fighter that had been, he was a next level, right? So maybe the way that Max looked has a lot to do with, Volkanovski's, maybe that's the point where he begins his level up. But big fight. It can be, the talk is going to be amplified tenfold if he loses. So it's something that we got to get done. All right, Junior Tafa. And he is fighting Usman, correct?
Now, is that a picture of Junior, or is that Justin?
I
can't tell. They look like,
I think it's Junior. When I did the image search, the fights were of Junior Tafa. Let's just talk about the fight. How do we think that goes? And can he avenge the fallen Samoan from the previous fight that was fighting up a weight division, who's also won since that fight? Let's start with Milford.
I believe Justin can. Usman's got that reach and explosiveness, but his technicality, I'm not sure if it's all there. If you watch the latest Ultimate Fighter season that he was on, he was just locked in, and he had one guy that was over emotional, one guy that I thought was a better fighter than him, and was just able to point him out. And then the other fight, all right. I don't hate Muhammad Usman, but I feel like he had like the luckiest run in Ultimate Fighter history ever. If you just watch the way things went, especially against Zach Ponga, unfortunately, Zach went straight into that jab, and Muhammad had said he's seen it coming too. Whenever he was, Zach was throwing his punches, getting out of line and lunging forward, all he had to do was extend that long arm of his. But
that's a Poly thing, I think. You beat a Poly, we root against you for the next X amount of fights.
It's tough because I haven't really seen a lot of evolution out of Muhammad, even though his brothers come over when he's been training with them and this and that. But as long as Tafa stays smart, I believe you'll get him.
All right. Spence, how do you think this goes? And I may have the wrong picture now that I look at it. I may have the wrong picture.
Yeah, that's Justin. It's his brother.
So we got Big Brother repping Little Brother on the screen. So Spence, how you see the fight going?
I think Tafa can do it, just for the fact that I believe he is the more experienced fighter. Muhammad Usman, T said it best. Like, he just had probably the luckiest run on tough. And look, like, even fighting a much smaller guy, Zach was bringing it to him. Zach was running away with that fight in my eyes. And then, but to his credit, he is a powerful guy. He's a good athlete. He can hang in there, and he's in that weight division where you just need that one shot. But I think Junior Tafa is also capable of delivering that shot while also being more experienced on a technical level as well. So I think he gets it done.
All right, Joe.
Just making a point, I think, Spence, you might be mixed up with his brother because Junior, this is his debut in the UFC. I think he's only got 4 MMA fights. Now, maybe like combat sports, I think he fought in Glory as well for a while. But this is his debut here. I think they're pretty even as far as, I think Usman's got like 8 or 10 different fights in MMA total. So they're both still pretty young, I would guess, in their careers with the UFC. So I don't know. This is going to be fun. It's a matter of, I think the heavyweights is just a flip of the coin a lot of the times because they're just 2 guys with a lot of power that aren't primarily wrestlers. It's just a matter of who touches whose button first. So I don't know. This is a hard one for me to call because I don't know a lot about Junior. Obviously, we know Justin. We've seen him show up several times in the UFC. So I don't know.
It's weird seeing a Usman that is not wrestling based, right? You see the name and you just assume, all right, I think I know what's going to happen. Whoa, all right. And also in the heavyweight division, I think you make a great point. Anybody touches anybody's chin at 250 plus, even shots that aren't hitting at the right point can turn a fight. So I think it's a firefight. You know what I mean? I think it's a firefight. Tafa has his kickboxing experience. Yeah, tough fight to call. So anytime there's a tough fight to call, I pick against the poly because of the curse. All right. We're going to find out because when we're going to preview the card, we're going to find out. We're going to make picks. We're going to document them. Nate Landwehr versus Dan 50K Ige. And this will be June 10th. And that's a fireworks fight. That is one that I doubt goes the distance. Ige is always throwing with bad intentions. So I don't know if you're familiar with these, or this is going to be one of the ones that this is a ways away. But I couldn't find anything for Dan in a while, so I was kind of wondering where he was going to be. And thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts? Anybody follow either one of these guys? Nate Landwehr?
Yeah, so Nate the Great and Dan Ige. I got Dan. I think Dan's too super explosive, and when it comes to the wrestling, I think he'll have the speed to get him.
I like hearing it. Sounds like you understand the fight. I don't know much about them. I just like seeing Dan's name on cards because I know he's going to bring it. Joe, how about you?
Man, Dan's had a rough go at it. He's kind of been back and forth. I mean, he was on a 3-fight losing streak, came back, had a good win, and his last time out, I think. So this is tough. Nate's coming on off a crazy win himself. This is a good fight. I think the timing for both these guys is good. Nate coming off of a big win, Dan coming off of a win, so they're both coming on a high. They're both exciting fighters. This is going to be a good one for both of them. Like this one has like fight of the night written all over it in my book. Guys got a lot to lose. Like they're both exciting fighters. This is going to be a good fight for Dan. For both of them, it could mean a lot to have either just an amazing show, amazing fight. Doesn't matter who wins. Both of their stock could go up from this one, or whoever wins this puts themselves back in the mix of like top contenders or gets them closer to that range. So yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, with Ige, I keep because he's caught a few losses, right? And I keep thinking he's going to get conservative at some point because, hey, there we go. I always figure he's going to get conservative at some point, because he's going to figure, well, I got to get a win, and nope, like his style is his style. So it's always good to see him. Spence, what do you think?
Yeah, just want to echo that sentiment from Joe. I think that this being a higher paced fight actually benefits Dan Ige. I think that might bring out the best in him. Like his recent losses have all been by decision, and so pushing him to like just up it a notch and to like look for the finish, like I think will probably bring out the best in him. So I pick him to win, but even if he doesn't, I think we'll get a really good showing from him regardless.
Always a good fight. He's a promoter's dream. Tyson Pedro. Here's a really, I don't know what happened in his last fight. I don't know if there was some kind of cardio issue but he just did not look engaged in his last fight. It's a picture of him and his dad. And had all those surgeries. It was good to see him back. I think he had a stoppage win in his first fight. Don't know where. I have not seen anything in terms of him looking at a next fight. Haven't heard the talk. Haven't heard Half Cast podcast. I haven't heard any of news of him. So if you've heard it, share it. If you haven't, what do you think should be next for Tyson Pedro? We'll start with Joe.
Wait, well, so his last fight, though, I could talk about what happened.
Okay.
He said that he had some kind of infection, like gastro infection or something, to where he was throwing up and crapping all night. And he said you could ask the USADA guy who was watching him on the toilet the whole time before the fight. So, so there was really a illness-related issue when it came to his performance.
Not good to hear, but good to hear, right? Not good to hear that he was in that kind of adversity, but it's good to know there's some reason for the way that the fight looked, because I kept waiting for him to, and he didn't show the energy, didn't show the explosiveness, all the things we've come to expect out of a Tyson Pedro fight, wasn't there. So it's good to have kind of the other side of the coin. So we'll leave it with you, Milford. What do you think should be next for Tyson?
No idea. After that last
either.
one.
I don't. But part of this is to hear if we've heard, because a lot of times we hear things, we're all in tune with PI fighters, especially poly fighters, right? So exactly what Milford just shared with us is kind of, those kind of things are what I'm hoping to learn when we do these catch up with the Islander fighters. Spence or Joe, any thoughts on, kind of what you would think you'd see next out of Tyson in terms of opponents or moves?
So I'm not quite sure who I'd match him up with, but the thing about the light heavyweight division is, to me, is kind of there for the taking right now. It's not the hot division it used to be. And so I think, rallying and like getting it's not out of the realm of possibility for him to start getting some real traction in that division and start building it up. Like he can be a real standout there. And I get, it sucks that, he had to take that fight after battling such bad illness, but I think it's also because he sat out for a long while due to injury. And so he had a good win when he came back. And then he's like, I can't keep sitting out of fights because I was out for so long. Sorry, I'm not too helpful as far as who I would match him up with, but, hope his health stays good and that we see him in there sooner rather than later, because the light heavyweight division is open for the taking, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I think kind of speaks to the greatness of John Jones, right? Before he was there, that title was getting shopped around, right? It was here, it was there. Shogun had it. Machida had it. Who else?
Rampage,
Rashad, Forrest. Like that thing was, moving around. Bang. He gets it. It's locked down unless he's out of the game for court, for being banned, for something other than losing. And then he comes back. He locks it down again. He leaves. Now the title's back on a kind of a, rotating cycle. So I think that does, just let you know what greatness we saw out of John at light heavyweight. I don't have a name for Tyson Pedro, but I'm thinking somewhere between, 12 and 15, or somebody that's ranked between 12 and 15. Get back in there, test it out, see where he's at. That's kind of where he was when he left. He got, really, the good thing about Tyson was the two opponents that the UFC gave him. I really feel like he was supposed to win those, and it gives me a good feeling that the UFC sees potential in him as a fighter to promote, because the fighters they gave him were really brought in, not like a setup fight, but they were ones he was expected to win. So I hope that that kind of energy keeps going. I think we got one left.
I definitely think Tyson's the scary thing about him is when he wins big. Every fight he's won, which in the UFC has been a finish. He either knocks him out or submits him. He's dangerous everywhere. Funny enough, though, I was looking it up, and 3 of the guys that he's beaten, 2 of them that he's finished, or 2 of the guys that he's beaten and finished are both ranked above him right now. Khalil Roundtree, which Khalil's been doing great, so he deservedly is up in the rankings. And Paul Craig also was on a tear after he lost to Tyson. So it just goes to show you, I'm like, this dude is top tier with what's there right now in the 205 division. Honestly, I would love to see him go against like somebody who's named, but also kind of also ranked above him is Dominic Reyes. I think that's like the perfect matchup right now. Tyson's coming off a loss. Dominic's just hasn't looked the same. Was it Ryan Spann? He just got beat by, I think. That fight I would love to see. I think just to see where Tyson's at right now, not being sick, coming in after a long layoff. Let's see if Tyson's still the killer that he has been historically. And Dominic Reyes is giving him another shot to like stay where he's at in the rankings, because honestly, I think he's ranked higher than he should be. And Tyson, it's a good chance for him to show up and kind of take a spot in the top 15.
Yeah, that's okay. He's got name value. It ain't a gimme. Both fighters need a win. You know what I mean? Like they would be bringing it. Good pick.
Sounds like the fight right there. Yeah. And just real quick too, it's like we met at the start. Joe mentioned our old MMA podcast, Face to Foot Style. We were also pushing T-shirts called Half Cast Clothing. So I won't. These guys took our name for their podcast.
Half Cast podcast.
Half-Cast podcast, man.
Well, speaking of foot to face, we have the shoey to the face. Perfect segue. We didn't even plan that out, folks. So foot to face, we got Tai Tuivasa. Just I think came back too quick against Pavlovich. Definitely took some time off. He looked large when Volkanovski fought. They had him at ringside, and I was like, whoa. So he needed some time away. He said he wanted to get away, wanted to not think about the fight game. Now he's getting back in shape and looking for a fight. But we'll start with Joe. What do you think is next for Tuivasa? I think he's 7 or 8. He definitely dropped after losing to Sergey.
What's next for him? Honestly,
another shoey.
He's in a great spot in terms of star power. I mean, just the great performance, even though he lost against Cyril Gane, like he definitely proved that he's top of these heavyweights, even with that nasty loss he just took. I mean, the heavyweight game is always weird, right? Because you can have Derek Lewis like fighting for titles and stuff and losing pretty badly, but then and be all the way down and then back up again because he knocked everybody else out. I mean, that's Tuivasa, right? Like this guy's got star power. He's young. He can still change. Honestly, I think his biggest enemy is himself. Like he's just young and he's making tons of money and he's popular and like I don't think he's doing well with managing the fame and stuff. He's still this party guy like that he is. I know that's his brand now. He's going to do it forever, which is disgusting. But it's just like I feel like that's something high school kids would do. And here he is like doing this stuff as a grown adult man. But now he's been given so much money and power. So I think he's his own worst enemy. But I don't think he's got just because he got that nasty loss, that doesn't put him any further back. Like everybody loves Tai Tuivasa, be it Poly or not. This he could fight whoever he wanted next. Really, I think that whoever they throw at him, it's going to be a big fight for him. So
makes sense. You got star power.
Yeah, definitely.
Milford, how about you? Who do you see? You see any names in the future for Tai, or you just think it's whoever they're going to match him up with?
at this point, whoever they're going to match him up with to make an exciting fight. His loss against Sergey, I don't think anyone's going to hold that against him. That's a big, scary Russian bear. But like Joe said, I follow him on Instagram. Dude's always going live, partying and whatnot. Do your thing. But, he's putting his potential at greatness, on hold with that. Because I'd like to see him get with the camp like Tyson did going to city kickboxing.
Yeah.
To really bring the best out of him. But like he's expressed before that he's just out there to fight. Don't care too much about this and that. Yeah.
Awesome. Makes sense. I think when he went to work with AKA, you saw it immediately. Like marked improvement, like, the fight with Hardy. There was like a 3-fight streak where I was like, wow, he's measured. He's the footwork is right. Like he was doing things, and DC was talking about what things that they were working on. And then, now I think maybe it's like BJ Penn, right? BJ Penn talked about the workouts with Marinovich and how he just didn't want to do them anymore. Like he just didn't like the camps. And we saw the result of the camps. Then we saw the result without the camps. And maybe that's a thing with Tuivasa. Maybe he's seen the A camp, the A training teams, and he's really got to get psyched up to be a part of that. But I think it's a piece of how much does he want, how much work does he want to put in. Spence, how about you?
Yeah, it's the thing with Ty is you wonder how much of his success is due to his recklessness as well. Some people like it's just throwing caution to the birds, like that benefits them. Like maybe that's taking him as far as it can though. And it's like the question is focusing on his training and taking everything more serious going to help him or hurt him? Because you get some guys who get to a point where they overthink certain things, and I wouldn't know either way. Like I don't know Ty like that. I just know that his approach to fighting has taken him a long way, and like T said, that last performance, like I don't know if anyone can really hold that against him. Like there's probably another reality where that fight happens and it's the exact opposite, where Ty just charges at him and just like throws every elbow he can or something like that. Like it's just one of those things where it's like I could see that mauling happen to anybody in that division. He just got he got the jump on him in that. As far as where he's at now, I think he's got some good options. He's had some good success with the current heavyweight roster, and I think you could match him up with a guy like Rosenstrike. I think Rosenstrike is in a similar area where he was like bridging that area where he's getting close to a title shot, but he was getting knocked out by the top 5 dudes. I think they're both still in the top 10. They haven't fought each other yet. That's a fight that could happen, and play eliminator. Why not?
Yeah, makes sense. That actually would be right at the at that level. I'd like to see him get a fight with Sergey again. Like you said, I think that could go the other way, and I think he'd be motivated to get that one back, the guy that beat him. But I think you're right in the sense that a lot of times his go for broke, when he was rocked against Greg Hardy, the smart thing would be cover up, you know what I mean? Get your head back. Well, he might have ended up just completely flat out from that if he just covers up versus firing back the way that he did. So the mentality has got him where he's at. And then, the Shui, what's funny about the Shui is Tuivasa wasn't on the card with Tyson. So one of the announcers asked him, "Hey, are you sitting in? Are you taking Shui duties?" Because Ty's not on the card. And he was like, absolutely not. That's disgusting. Like, and they're boys, you know what I mean? And I've seen them on the podcast before, and he's completely like, that is disgusting. Like that's a tame Shui compared to what they do and put other stuff in there that I don't even like talking about. So we won't talk about that. We'll move on.
Real quick though, I do want to say one thing that will contribute to this success is he and his brother-in-law are both proud owners of Matai watches. So like that'll take him far, I'm sure.
Let him know what time it is with a Matai watch. All right. Like we said, we're going to preview the card coming up tomorrow. I believe everybody made weight except for Christian Rodriguez. He missed, I'm not sure how much he missed by. He's fighting the kid, right? Raul Rosas, at 18 years old, I believe, at this point. So, minus 225, minus 245, and minus 180. So there are some pretty definitives in this first part of the undercard. Let's start with the kid, Raul Rosas Jr. What do you think, Spence? Who's going to win that one? Christian Rodriguez came in overweight, the only fighter to not make weight today.
I by default, I kind of have to pick Rosas Jr. because all the hype's behind him, and I honestly don't even know who this Christian Rodriguez guy is. I'm not familiar with him, but it feels like one of those moments where the UFC is building a star, and it makes sense that they're not going to throw him at the top dudes yet, but they want to. I think the matchups against a fellow newcomer to the UFC, and the only one who I've seen perform so far is Rosas, and he's been pretty impressive getting his wins so far. And I loved his post-fight speech the last time where he says, I want a bonus so that my mom can buy a van and drop me off at practice or something like that. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, I'm picking Rojas for that.
Awesome. I think that's a wise pick. Milford, how about you? You going with the odds?
I picked Rosas to win, but I'm going for Rodriguez, Mr. 1 pound overweight. But Rosas is like that Rory McDonald, but just the evolution of sports and taking in everything that comes before him. I have no reason to doubt him at all. I just want to pick Christian to win this one.
You picking Christian?
Yeah.
Nice. Way to go be the contrarian and say I'm going with the unknown kid. They're both kids. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, they're so new. I'm like, there's not a lot known about either guy other than what they've shown. I think Rodriguez is a couple of fights in to the UFC right now. Their records are pretty similar, though. So who knows? But I think it's just with Spencer's point. He's kind of got the hype around him. He's already had the limelight on him pretty heavily anyway, just the way he came into the UFC. So I don't think he's going to be as shaken by that. If there's any X factor, it's that Raul probably can handle this. We don't know about Christian. And as far as can he handle the big crowd, because they've also bumped off two really well-known, one really well-known fighter from this main card, which is Kelvin Gastelum, who's fighting on the undercard thanks to these guys. So there's a lot of spotlight on these two, and probably some nasty glares from some of the veterans there. I think Chris Curtis was making a stink about this too, being bumped from the main card, just because these guys got some more hype around them. Whether that's right or not, I don't know, but I just think Raul's probably got that X factor. Like, it's not going to bug him as much. I think he enjoys having the limelight on him, and it's just going to hype him up more. So we'll see. Raul? I think so. Yeah.
Picking Raul. All right. Hey, Endeavor's got it. They just got the merger. They're going to have to make money. And if you got somebody who sells more pay-per-views because of the audience, that's just part of the business. It's going to happen. That's part of being mainstream. All right. Definitely. Keep track of your picks, because we are going to actually review these on our next show. And we'll see how much better everybody is than me. Spencer, Raul, Christian.
Hold on. I think I lost my spot. Where are we at?
You're good. Did the opening fight, Raul Rosas and Christian Rodriguez. Did you pick already?
Oh yeah, I picked. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Rosas, I'm going with Raul. Ton of hype. I got to think that, although Rodriguez is 8-1 and all his wins by stoppage, like, this kid's no slouch. His only loss is by decision. That gave me some pause. Like, are we going to have a, what was the kid's name in Bellator?
AJ McKee.
What's that? No, the wrestler that came in and got knocked flat in like 2 of his first 3 fights.
Yeah,
Aaron Pico.
that's right. Yeah.
When I saw the Christian Rodriguez's record, I was like, did the matchmakers mess this one up? But, hard to go against Vegas when they're that big, and they obviously know more than I do. So I'm going with the kid, and the reason they moved him, that's why that whole fight, it wasn't Christian. It's Raul's why that fight got moved up to the main card. So going with Rosas. Next, we're moving on to Kevin Holland and Santiago Ponzinibbio. I love saying that name. I know what I'm talking about. Listen to Joe Rogan. Ponzinibbio. We'll start with Joe. Got Kevin Holland or you got Ponzinibbio?
I like Kevin Holland. He's good. But I'm honorary Argentine. I served an LDS mission in Argentina, so I always go for Santiago. Like he's the man. He's scary, dude. This is a good matchup, man. This could have been a fight night like main event. To be completely honest, these guys could have there's so much. Kevin Holland always brings a fun show, and the styles with this fight, it's just gives me chills. Like this is gonna be a good one. But I'm going with Santiago. I think he's a more controlled chaos kind of guy. I think he gets it done against Kevin Holland.
Okay.
Wolford. I'm going to go with my boy Kevin Holland, rep the IE.
Is he Inland Empire?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think he's in Southern California, but I don't know. I didn't know if he's from there. Okay. All right. We got one Ponzinibbio, one Holland. Spencer?
I think Ponzinibbio. I like Kevin Holland a lot. In fact, I used to put a lot of stock into his future, but the guy is kind of like he's a wild man. Sometimes he has big holes in his game that he refuses to close because he'd rather opt to be an entertaining guy. And I don't think Ponzinibbio is going to be that guy that's going to take him down and wrestle him to a boring decision, but he, like Joe said, he's got that controlled chaos that I think is going to benefit him against a wild man like Kevin Holland. I could very well be wrong. I kind of hope I am because I'm a big Kevin Holland fan. I love the guy. I really thought by this point in his career he'd be fighting for a title right now, but look, not for lack of trying. He's fought some really good guys and he's put on some really entertaining fights, and I expect this one to deliver, but I am picking Santiago.
Gotcha. I'm going the same as Spencer. I was a Kevin Holland fan, but I mean, so since December of 2020, Kevin Holland is 2-4-1 since the end of 2020 when he knocked out Jacare from his back. That crazy knockout from his back. He's 2-4-1 in the one no contest. He ended up being knocked out, which is interesting because Ponzinibbio since 2020 is 2-3. So these are two exciting fighters with not very good records. And I think Ponzinibbio gets it done. I just think he's got he's not as wild. I think Kevin Holland always makes the fights exciting. I don't know that he's that concerned about, necessarily coming out of there with a win. I think he wants to be entertaining, and that's working for him. I don't think a loss makes it not work for him. Again, 2-4-1 since 2020. So he's not being talked about being cut. He's entertaining. Backstage, I guess he got into it with Street Jesus in the back. If you saw that on Twitter or Instagram, so he brings the cameras, he brings the spotlight. So I'm going with Ponzinibbio, and then we got Adrian Yanez and Rob Font. That should be an interesting fight. Let's start with Spence. Yanez and Rob Font.
I'm picking Rob Font in this one. Man, he is a guy that's just so good, but he's in a very tough spot. It's now is he just recently in bantamweight? He was featherweight for a while, wasn't he?
I don't know.
Anybody clarify that? All right, don't worry about it. No. He was bantamweight. Sorry. I was mixing him up because he fought Cheeto. He fought Frankie Edgar in that very close fight. But man, like he's so good because it's crazy to look at his performance even against Cheeto because we know how good Cheeto is and how much damage that guy can cause, and that was the big factor in that was the damage. But on the stats chart, like Rob Font outstruck him in every round, but he just was so beat up from that. But to me, that's just speaking to the toughness of this guy. Like his face can be falling apart and he's still pushing the pace enough so that on a numbers game, he's still landing throughout the whole fight. And so I'm picking Rob Font, because even in his losses, he's an impressive person to look at. So Rob Font in my book.
Gotcha. Milford. Rob Font, Adrian Yanez.
I love Font, but I think Giannis gets the finish in this one.
The finish, not just win, but win by finish. Yeah. So it's interesting with both these fighters. Adrian, 12 of his 19 wins by stoppage, by KO or submission, and Font, 12 of his 16 wins by stoppage. So both of these guys are looking for the finish. So you're saying Yanez gets it done. All right. Joe?
Yeah. I think Yanez is very scary. I kind of got him, but I mean Rob Font. I can't count him out, but this is a hard pick. But I think Adrian Yanez, he's on a tear. He's just been demolishing people, so he's got a lot of momentum behind him. Rob Font's great. I don't know if he's lost a step or not. All that damage he took in that Cheeto fight was pretty gross. So I think Yanez has got it.
Yeah, I'm with the Yanez group. I think his arc is different. Font, man. I mean, he's lost so many of these close, just wars, right? And I don't know that this. I think this may be just the same kind of thing, just a really tough, drag it out dogfight. Milford's out. Milford's feeling that one. He's saying not only win, he's saying finish. Good for you too, because I'm too shy to be doing that kind of stuff. I'm just trying to pick. And this to me is a toss up. Like this was one of those where I'm like, man, I'm just, I don't know which way I lean. But I am going Yanez. All right, first of the co-mains. Durinho against Jorge Masvidal. And now we're getting into the two big ones. We'll go back to Joe. Where do you see this one coming up? Is it Brazil or Miami? And they're both from Miami, actually.
Yeah, that's a hard one, man. I like Masvidal. Masvidal's got all the tools. We know that to win a fight against a fighter like Burns. Burns is so tough, though. He's had so many good showings lately. Man, I don't know. I think Gilbert Burns gets it done as much as I like Masvidal as a fighter and everything. I just don't know. I don't know. Is he still in it or not? I guess is the biggest X factor because otherwise this is kind of a toss up because Masvidal's so good as well. But I think Gilbert Burns is dialed in and he's going to take this one for sure.
All right. And since it's co-main, are you going stoppage or are you going decision?
Yeah, I think Burns gets a submission on this. Masvidal's shown a lot of weaknesses with that lately, and so I just think Burns is going to get him down, and he's just so good with his jiu-jitsu. It's like he'll get a finish by submission, probably round 3 or 4.
Gotcha. And the round. We're starting to come out of our shells here on the show. We're not just picking. We're picking by method and in the rounds. I love it. Milford, you're the one that kicked off the let's be definitive and take a stand. So where are you with Gilbert Burns and Masvidal?
Got to go with my boy Jorge. Hey, he ate that palusami. He's got the power.
That's right. That's right.
He said, so I was watching his documentary thing that he did with Brett Okamoto recently, and he was saying that after that, it was on the Joe Rogan thing, that after his Usman knockout, he was in the dark place, for a while. So the way he was prepping for the following fights, wasn't really him. So I tend to believe him on that end. And even on the ESPN stuff he was doing with Brett, he was saying how he's much more dialed in now with his diet and discipline. So I tend to be a believer, but then also Gilbert was talking about Colby, how he had him on the ground and against the fence to certain position, and how he plans to utilize that same type of getting him down that type of position on Jorge to get the finish. But I got Jorge KO first or second round.
Ooh, I love it. It's only our second show, and we're already coming out saying we're saying outlandish. First round, man. Nice. All right, Spence, how about you?
I'm with T on this one. I got Jorge. I think some people have forgotten how good this man is. And yes, he had that knockout cold knockout, which is never gonna look good, but like that, we're talking like that's there's not a pattern of behavior that contributed to that. Like before that, he lost a decision, but in a fight that he took on very short notice, had to cut 20 pounds in like a week or something like that. And so like the previous loss was kind of like, okay, whatever, the knockout, fair game. But then he goes up against Colby, and Colby's a tough guy. He's a tall order, and that's the kind of fighter I think that is going to give Jorge trouble, is a smothering wrestler that's going to just nonstop, like do his pitter patter, ground and pound, and just rack up the rounds. But Gilbert Burns isn't that kind of fighter. Very strong grappler, but you see this with a lot of jiu-jitsu guys where they're, of course, great at jiu-jitsu, but that doesn't automatically make them good wrestlers. Like getting guys against the cage, getting them on the floor, hitting them with that ground and pound, that's not really Gilbert Burns' game. He is capable of it, but he's not that smothering wrestler like a Colby. I think it's very realistic that we can see Jorge stuff these takedown attempts, and then Gilbert Burns, while he's also no slouch as a stand-up fighter. I mean, look, the guy, he brought it to Hamzat. Like Gilbert Burns is no slouch on the stand-up as well. He's got power in his hands, but in that realm, I think Jorge's gonna got an edge on him. Like we've seen Jorge knock out much bigger guys, and like who was it, Darren Till, before he sent him to middleweight. I think that's still in the realm of possibility that we see him stuff his takedowns, and that I can see him getting a knockout or a TKO by round 2 or 3.
Looking at action-packed card. So let's see. Gilbert Burns, since Dan Hooker, of all people, turned out his lights in 2018. Since then, he's lost against, one of the greatest welterweights of all time in Usman, and a split decision loss to Hamzat. He has found ways to win. Masvidal's 3-5 since 2017 and 6-7 since 2015. But very durable. When you look at his record, I think I don't know about, obviously he's doesn't have the most of them, but he's got a grip of split decision losses. Like when you go back and look at his record, he's got like 5 or 6 split decision losses. So he's always in the fight. I think Burns is going to lose if he ends up trying to do what he did with Hamzat, because Masvidal is way more technical than Hamzat is. He's sneakier. He has better setups, and he lays things out there, and what he calls sets traps. He did it well with Nate. He beat the dog out of Nate. Like that wasn't even close. So I think if Burns goes in and tries to do that kind of thing, I think that he is going to get stopped. I don't think he's going to do that. I think Burns is going to find a way to win. I think if he works in and out, he stays all the way in or all the way out, and makes it a gas tank fight, and uses the tools, I think he wins. But I don't see him stopping Masvidal. Masvidal's only been stopped once in his entire career, I think, against Usman, and the rest of them are decisions, and most of them split decision losses. So I'm taking Burns by by decision. I think that Masvidal is too durable for Burns to get out of there. But that is where I land with those. So that makes Masvidal a lock to win because I picked Dorino. And then we have the main event, the main event. Now the strap is on this side of the screen. All right. The strap is on the Brazilian, and we have records of 23-2 versus 7-1, and it tells you just how far and fast Faika has come in such a short period of time. And I think most of it has to do with he held 2 wins over Adesanya already, right? So that makes a great storyline, and it makes a great storyline for the return match. So before we get into the picks, what you're looking at is a tweet by Israel Adesanya that's saying, "Fine, then I'll just use an IV to rehydrate. What's the quote legal limit unquote again?" So, do you see that as him just poking at Alex, or do you see that as he's already making excuses? So the Fury online of the chat, the keyboard warriors, is like he's already making excuses. He doesn't expect to win, which I don't know if I don't believe. I think Adesanya thinks he's going to win every fight that he's in, as he should. But do you take anything from that tweet? We'll go with Joe first. Does that tweet mean anything?
Yeah, I don't know how to take it sometimes because you never know what people are thinking. But Bisping was making some comments on it too. I was just listening to the show today, and according to him, he's like it could be either thing. Like you said, it's like I don't know how much stock he put into it. He says, but it does kind of sound like what you were saying. Was it? What did you just say?
Making excuses, like he doesn't expect to win.
Yeah, like making excuses, kind of like, why is he talking like that just before the fight? Is it just revealing to him like some maybe insecurities going into this? I mean, he's lost to the guy, 3 times professionally, and lost his title, everything he worked for kind of thing. And I don't know, what is it? Why would you bother making a tweet like that unless because he's been quiet. The thing is the biggest telling thing about this is he's been quiet pretty much leading up to the whole thing of this thing. He hasn't been doing all the stuff he's been before, which to me shows somebody who's really dialed in, right? You're not talking to smack. You're not building up. Like, you're just somebody like hungry predator in the shadows. Like, until this happens, like why all of a sudden when he decides to start really promoting it, he starts throwing shade. And is it for a promotional thing? It could be. I'm like, when you throw shade out like that because of the whole Volkanovski thing with or what they were accusing I don't know if it was Volk, but maybe somebody from his camp was accusing Islam of doing this right before. So it's maybe because
it was Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker was the one that tweeted.
Dan Hooker, yeah. Okay, yeah, there. So I don't know if it's him just continuing that on, but I think it's just showing maybe he is making excuses. I just think it's weird that he's speaking up now and saying that right before the fight when he's been quiet the whole time.
Yeah, that's what's odd. There wasn't a big battle of words. So it does seem to stand out. Milford, does that tweet mean anything to you?
Not really. I got to see what this tweet's in response to, because the only thing I know about is that whole Islam thing. And even for Izzy, like he walks around at a pretty lightweight. He doesn't have to cut much, so I don't see him making excuses or anything. I just think this is some type of joke poking.
I think part of it was because it came after Pereira weighed in right at like 20 minutes before the time limit that he had. So he was looking like really drained and stuff. So I think that's when this came out, was right after, because he just barely weighed in right at the end. So I think that was when he tweeted. This was like not too long after it, because he has less time to rehydrate. He looked pretty drained, but I don't know. That's just how he looked last time too. So anyways, that's just time wise.
Yeah, it's just the wisecrack. Then I don't read anything into it.
Okay, Spence, how about you?
I'm going to give Izzy the benefit of the doubt, and like if anything, maybe this is a jab at USADA more than anything else, because like I've never had to cut weight like these guys, but everything I know about it is that it's a miserable experience, and so even cutting a little bit of weight, it's like you're making yourself miserable for a moment in time to hit this scale. And like, there's certain ways that you can go about recovering from that. And if USADA's letting some people do it and not others, yeah, that's a frustrating thing, you know. And if I don't know too much about the criteria for that, but since that Islam and Volkanovski fight, you've been hearing about, especially out of their camp, guys who are privy to some knowledge about how there is a loophole, I guess, where you can rehydrate with an IV, even though that was the thing that they took away. If I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that his head's in a good spot and he's just venting some frustration, which would ultimately be with the practice of weight cutting and how the obstacles that USADA is giving them. And if they're not applying that equally, that's a shot at them more than it is at Piera, in my opinion.
All right. So before we're going to start with Spencer with his pick, but before we do, just on that note, because I think you've all seen the pictures of, Alex standing next to, light heavyweights and dwarfing the light heavyweights, and people saying he could fight light heavyweight and heavyweight. And they had asked Robert Whitaker about that. And Robert Whitaker said, he can do a lot of things. 205 makes a lot of sense. He could probably even fight heavyweight. And then he said, stay far away from John Jones because the lack of wrestling, and there is that, right? So he could go to heavyweight. His frame would definitely support, 230, 225, 230, 235. But there's nothing for him to be had there with John Jones sitting at the top of the pile. So there's some money fights there, I think, for him, maybe at that third division above, but not the title, not as long as John Jones is there. So back to Spence. What's your pick? You got and what's going to be called out? And still or and new?
I'm gonna say and still. But I'm picking Piera just because he's got the track record. Obviously, he's beaten him 3 times, finished him twice. But to Izzy's credit, that looking at just those numbers would be a little disingenuous to his performance. Those were actually very close fights, even including the ones where he got finished. Like he had his moments in both of those instances where he almost finished Piera. But to me, I hear people saying he's the more experienced mixed martial artist, and that's why he has the edge in regards to Izzy. That is true, but he's not the more experienced mixed martial artist where he is mixing in his grappling. He has good enough grappling to be defensive, and he did implement it well in the last fight. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's only so much you can learn in a short amount of time. I don't put in a lot of stock that Izzy is so good at wrestling now that he can suddenly no longer avoid the kickboxing match, which I think this is ultimately going to boil down to. And when it comes to that, I pick Piera winning, and I think it's going to possibly be by knockout again.
Sound pick at some point, And what if Israel wins, right? Izzy wins, then they fight a 5th time, or where does it stop? So, yeah,
well, you guys. I know you guys have weighed in on how you don't like instant rematches. I agree with that, except for one criteria. If you're a long defending champ, I think you earn an instant rematch. But in the case of Piera, yes, you've beaten this particular fighter multiple times, but you haven't defended the belt multiple times. And because of that, if he loses to Izzy, he's got to get a few more wins before he can get a rematch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's times that the rematch, works. The problem also with the long-term one is there's plenty of fights now for the new champion because the long-term one's probably cleaned out the division. If you've been, if GSP would have been beat, 10 fights into his streak, he probably has fought a bunch of the contenders. So the new champion would, there'd be fresh fights, but earned. And it's a history of the sport, right? It's hard to cut it off now and say, it doesn't matter how long you've been in, a champion. We don't get an instant rematch now when that's really the history of the sport. The history of the sport has been, if you're a long-term champion, you get a rematch. So good points. Milford, who you got? You got and new or and still?
So I'm actually not against immediate rematches, especially if the fights are close to begin with. I don't hate Alex at all. I actually like Alex. But you heard Izzy say before on the previous fight that those calf kicks, Alex, got to him with those calf kicks, deaded his legs. They're heavy, so he couldn't move, and that's how it got to him. So I pick Izzy for this one. I pick him on the attack with his own calf kicks and jabs, and I think we might see some grappling out of him. Maybe not, but I see him being more on the attack in this one and getting that second round KO.
Milford's about that finish. He ain't picking no decisions. He's saying he wants to see action. All right, Joe, and new or and still?
Ugh, this is a hard one. I got Alex, I think, but it would be by a very slight margin just because of how the last fight was going. And it'll be interesting to see Izzy fight like he normally does. I just wonder how much all the grappling he did, if that kind of slowed him down striking wise. Obviously, the calf kicks, like Milford said, was probably a big part of why he was slow. But I think if he implements, I guess, his slight grappling advantage, just using it to close out close rounds, things like that. He's such a smart fighter. I think I'm actually going to lean more back towards Izzy. I think he will win this one just because I think he'll take a decision. He's just so smart. I think he'll do what he has to do to win. And if he doesn't go super grappling heavy like he did last time, I think he'll have so much more energy. His distant management's so good. So I think he'll draw it out and probably use the grappling just to close out, put a stamp on rounds that might be close. And I think he'll win. I just switched my opinion right now. So I'm going with Izzy. Round 5 decision.
That's the hard thing with going later is you hear the arguments and you're like, hey, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm going AP. I think that, sometimes the opponents just have the number, and it hasn't mattered what format it's been in. AP's been able to get the win. It was interesting to me that Israel actually let that, that he said that knowing there was a rematch, that the calf kicks really took away his movement. I found that interesting because Israel's a really smart fighter. So, I don't think he does anything by accident. I don't think there's nothing left to chance with Izzy. So that makes me wonder, to Milford's point is, maybe that's what he's going to do, or, what's behind leaking that not really leaking it. He was open and upfront about it. But I think AP ends up keeping the title. Now we're picking how. I'm going to jump on that. Let's go KO end of round 2, somewhere in round 2. I think he gets it done. But I'm so bad at picks that I'm not used to picking methods or rounds. I'm just trying to squeak out a correct pick, not pick the time and all that stuff. Always amazed me when people would say that. But you would think I'd be good enough and confident enough and used to being wrong that I'd be able to say knockout 13 seconds in the first round or something, because I'm wrong all the time. But I'm still hesitant to throw those out there. But
put it all on the line here on this show.
I'm just trying to establish how wrong I can be. That's the only reason I'm adding new factors here.
We're gonna hash out who's the worst in a few shows. We'll have enough data to crown the actual worst, because we all believe we're the worst, which is fun in the sense that we're not know-it-alls, or if we are, we keep it to ourselves. We pick. I actually will pick against people if it's a complete toss-up and there's a fighter that I like better than the other one. My friends will be like, who you picking? And I'll pick, and they're like, no, are you picking because you think the fighter will win, or are you picking because you're trying to jinx the other guy? But in this one, let's just go with the picks. We'll get together at some point, figure out when our next show is. Is there anything that you guys want to talk about? Matai watches, any shout outs before we wrap things up?
Shout out to my wife because I've been doing this for the last 2 hours on my weekend. So don't kill me, honey. All right. But no, that's it.
All right. Milford, any shout outs?
Matai watches just dropped that Black Series, looking sleek and clean and fine. Go get yours now.
MataiWatches.com, right?
Yes, sir.
That's where you can find it. What is it called? The Black Series?
I believe so.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I'm sorry, but they're all black and they look so clean. You got to get you.
Gotcha.
Yep,
Gotcha. Spence, how about
the
you?
It's the Black Series. It looks fresh, like saving up my pennies so I can, one of these days I might be a proud owner. Now, but shout out to Matai Watches. They're a great brand, great sponsor, and they give back to their community a lot. And so shout out to them. Shout out to Behind the Lavalava and the rest of our cast. And that's it. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Hey, things of value are worth saving up for. So I appreciate it. We're going to see how wrong we all are, how right some of us are. And I'm looking like I'm going to rewind this and check out Milford's picks because he is like confident when he said some things. I'm like, dang, he must have, he got something. He sees something. So I appreciate the time, and we'll see you on the Messenger, and we'll figure out when our next show is. All right?
All right.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Take care.